What's up, everybody? Thanks for checking out the No Name Radio Show, episode 4. The guest of this show is Bill Corbin. He was nice enough to sit down with us and have a conversation about American Aquarium, Kyle Nixon, the 38's, everything in between, and really cool conversation. So hope you enjoy it. Thank you. Well, thanks for hopping on, man.
Oh, no, thanks for having me.
It's nice to Talvo to hook folks up like this. It's cool what he's doing, so we definitely appreciate him.
He is fantastic. Big fan of that guy.
Now the secret's out.
Uh-oh.
Don't give him the big head right off the bat. We got to wait till the end and make him sit through it first.
Perfect.
He did have the live going a couple days ago with you playing with what was it, Mince? What was the name? Mince Deal.
Mince Dill, yeah, it's a Vince Gill tribute band, which is just a blast. It's a bunch of guys that we're all in different bands, and so we get together and play. Usually, you can catch us in Fort Worth like Sunday through Thursday somewhere, because on Fridays and Saturdays we're all off playing with different acts and stuff like that. But it's been a blast. The vocalist Eric Willis has his own solo stuff, but just a killer vocalist and a great dude. And so it's been a lot of fun.
It looked like it was a lot of fun. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, it's not work at all.
Is it more fun because it is being a little, intentionally goofy as far as the name and everything, or is it?
It's funny. Like we are goofy about it. Like the name is goofy. And pretty much after every song, Eric's like, "Let's hear it for Vince Gill. That's a Vince Gill song." And we don't take ourselves or that band seriously,
Right.
but we take the music very seriously because we're big Vince Gill fans. And so, and that stuff's not the easiest in the world, Like we want to do it justice, and if you do Vince Gill poorly, everybody knows it, and so. It's fun to take the music that seriously, but also just enjoy playing with each other. Like we're all buddies, and it's fun to get to see everybody and get an excuse to play on stage together. Because literally we're all in different bands, so it's kind of like a reunion every time we get together.
So I guess work backwards for in some of this, because we're already here as far as the Texas scene and you. All these buddies that you made, how did that happen? As far as I know bands you've been in that we'll get to, you've been popular in that scene for a long time, but how did you get wrapped up with so many people and contacts like that? Just time?
Yeah, I think just over the years, and some of the guys, honestly, we all live in the DFW area, and so like Eric, I think I had maybe met him in passing when I was with American Aquarium. I think we may have played with his band, but we didn't start to become like buddies till I moved to Fort Worth 7 years ago, and I've been here. And Eric is actually insanely strong, and I like to do powerlifting. So like we've done a powerlifting meet together, and we work out together sometimes. He's the only guy that can sing Vince Gill and squat 500 pounds. It's actually really obnoxious.
Did he start singing Vince Gill before he started lifting weights, or is that a product of too many weights at one point in time?
I don't know which came first. You have to ask him that. I like to think he just was born that way. He can do both at all times.
Yeah, I got you.
But yeah, the Fort Worth music scene is fantastic. I think, Austin's, it's so expensive to live there. And Fort Worth has like a thriving like arts and food culture, and the cost of living is not outrageous. So for a working musician, actually, Fort Worth is fantastic. That's not why I moved here, but I literally got an apartment like initially right by my favorite venue, Magnolia Motor Lounge, the old location, and I just wanted to be able to walk to good live music, but there's good venues all over the city and a lot of amazing talent. And so just kind of crossed paths over the years and became buddies. Because when I moved to Fort Worth 7 years ago, I didn't play at all for 4 years. Like my bass stayed on the wall. I was shifting careers into the fitness industry, and but I still love music. Like I don't want to not see live music, and I had made tons of friends in the industry over the years. So it was nice to come here and find that a lot of people were here already, or were moving here, or at the very least come through and play quite often. So it's been a fit. I'm meant to be in Fort Worth. I love it here. I just bought a house, so
Yeah, that's
Fort Worth is stuck with me.
cool. So I guess we can back up and then get back to where we are with everything.
Sure.
You, I don't know exactly. I know who you played with, but I don't know how you got into all that. So where are you originally from?
I'm a North Carolina guy. I was born in New Jersey, but I lived there till I was about 9, and then moved to North Carolina. Grew up there. North Carolina's home, as far as I'm concerned. And I went to NC State, which is how I know BJ.
Right.
I worked at a music store and was doing a lot of session work and playing with a bunch of bands, and just hit it off with BJ as far as his ambition. I wanted to tour and travel and play music, and he did too. And I never met anybody that was as stubborn and driven about it as he and I were at the time. And we hit the road for a very long time together.
I'm sure that it's few and far between to find people that actually want to make original music and tour, and you start whittling down the suspects pretty quick, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah. And the problem is that, like, everybody wants to get paid for it, and he and I wanted to do it regardless of that, as did everybody in the early days. I mean, we slept on a lot of floors and had no money, like basically homeless, and just like living in poverty. But we wouldn't have done it any other way. I mean, and that's the thing. If we both had nothing to lose, so we just did it.
So when growing up before college, were you already playing music? When did you start playing music?
I started playing when I was 12. So my best friend played guitar, and one of our other buddies played drums, and they were going to start a band, and it was sheer FOMO that made me want to play. I was like, I'll be goddamn, y'all are going to start a band without me. What's left? And they were
Right.
like, bass. I was like, cool. I had no idea what a bass was. So I cut every yard for like a year, and in the neighborhood, like trying to make, save up money. And every time I went to go buy a used one, it would get sold. And so finally my dad broke down and surprised me with a bass and an amplifier. And like I got the bass on a Friday night and went to band practice the next day. And it was literally my buddy being like, okay, put your finger here and then hit it like that. And then, so we did a lot of like Nirvana and Green Day, like 3-chord songs. And it was terrible, but it seemed awesome at the time.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, yeah, it was definitely awesome at the time. That's the way that works, right?
oh, yeah.
Anything that resembles the original.
Oh, yeah. It was like a magic trick. I was just like, oh, this is great. And just kind of fell in love with it.
Deaton, you got something to piggyback on that?
No, it's just I believe it's really funny how everybody kind of has the same, not necessarily the same foundation of what inspired them once they started picking up music, but where you started, and then started playing out like, oh my God, we were terrible, but we
Yeah.
enjoyed it so much. Like, so I guess my thing is like now, as you've moved this far through your musical career, do you still find the same passion in the playing as you did when you first really like the fire, when you first picked it up? Like, wow, this is
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah. No, I do actually. I've been very fortunate that I'm excited about everything that I do. I'm not. I have a gym outside of Fort Worth in Springtown, and I love it there. And I have a fiance. We have a house. Like I'm not. I don't need to be on the road 300 days a year anymore. And I'm fortunate enough that like I only am going to play with people that I like and respect, and like I'm not gonna take a gig I don't like or don't, whether it's the music that I don't like or if it's a person I don't like. Not that there's many people I don't like, but you know,
Yeah.
it's I don't have to do music at all.
You found the time, basically, what you're saying.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
it's I play on stuff that that I want to, and that I'm proud and excited to be a part of. And otherwise, I wouldn't do it. Like it's not about money for me, or any sort of success or anything. American Aquarium, we saw a lot of success, and I'm very thankful for it, and it was great. And you know, now I like sleeping in my own bed, and and I still play a lot. I mean, I'm busy as hell, and maybe that's why. Like, I only play with people that I want to play with. So you'll never see me on stage begrudgingly like phoning it in on a
Right.
gig,
Yes.
you know. And I think that's a disservice.
Well,
Like,
I saw you twice through Memphis.
what venues?
The High Tone.
Okay.
Both times,
Were we with
if I'm not mistaken.
Corey Brannon, or who were we with?
One time was Corey Brandon. No, maybe both times were.
Okay.
I've seen the band several times, but I think
Yeah.
you were only with them
I was
the
with them
first
up
two.
until early 2017.
Yeah, I was. You know, Memphis is the Wednesday stop. You know, so it was hard to it's hard to go or get my buddies to go, and eventually I'm just like, screw it, I'm going to see them without y'all, and you know, and the first two shows I was by by myself on a Wednesday and had to work the next morning. You know, those days, but
Yeah, no.
but no, and from each show even to current, it's a slow grow, you know, in this area still. So I saw, you know, I didn't see it from the beginning in this, you know, through this area, but I saw it kind of in the middle till today. I saw
Yeah.
the band a few months ago. So
Memphis was always fun, and the new iteration of American Aquarium is fantastic. I got a chance to fill in for their current bass player, Alden. He,
I just happened to see that the other day. That's really cool.
yeah.
How did that come about like that?
I think it was like a Wednesday night or something like that. I was at a bar seeing. I was watching my buddy Drew, who plays with me in the Vince Gill band. He was playing at the White Elephant in Fort Worth, and BJ was like, "Hey man, are you available this weekend?" And I did have some gigs, but I had charts for those gigs, and with American Aquarium, like, they could play a set that I essentially knew. Like, I didn't have to, you know.
Right.
So a lot of the songs that, like, we wrote the parts together, so like it wasn't like I had to learn a lot of material. Whereas for somebody else to come in, you know, BJ knew that I'd be able to do it, and it'd be fun, and it was fun. Like, I wanted to do it.
I bet it was.
Oh, dude, it was a
would be cool.
blast. Yeah, it was absolutely fantastic. And you know, it's good to get BJ and I always go get, you know, food. I'll take them somewhere in Fort Worth and show them a cool new spot or something like that whenever they come through town. I try to catch them every time they come through. But it was nice to have, like, we did 2 days together, so it was nice to have a couple days to kind of really catch up and dive into the thick of things. But yeah, Alden was he was not feeling well and wasn't going to be able to make it, and so he messaged me. I was able to sub out. I played with a band called the Teague Brothers as well, and there's a fantastic bass player who named Amanda Jarman, who was able to jump in and fill in for me, and I went on from there, and you know, got to go do that weekend, and it was super fun. It was an absolute blast.
So that this is a question that I've thought about asking people that in your position, and how does it feel, or what's your reaction when you hear, like, if you walk into a venue and you hear some random band playing, you know, a song that you helped write or helped put together, like how what is that?
Yeah,
What's
I've
that
ran into
like?
that a couple of times in the stockyards. You know, I've heard "I Hope He Breaks Your Heart" covered by a number of bands in the
I bet.
over the past couple of years. And no, it's flattering. It's awesome. It's what we all want. It's to have a song that resonates with one person, let alone, you know, I feel like musicians have a lot of our stuff was about, like, being on the road, and I feel like musicians have a tendency to get it even better than most people. Although, it resonates with people on a lot of levels, but to hear something like that, it's always like, it's always very flattering.
Right.
But in the same way, it's kind of sometimes difficult to take a compliment. It's also like, oh, I don't know what to do.
Right.
And the thing is, like, if you could just sit there and listen and appreciate it, it'd be great. But somebody always is like, hey, that's your bit. Like, and you're like, oh, no, stop, please. Like, I don't want that. I just want to enjoy it.
No,
So-
just my thought is, it's, if anyone was to write a song and you're having a beer somewhere and the band kicks, especially like I Hope He Breaks Your Heart, because that's a pretty recognizable intro when that kicks off. So, I mean, I could imagine the like, hell yeah, right off the bat,
Yes,
just the feeling, whether you said it out loud or not, just the feeling of it, like, okay.
absolutely.
Because usually you hear the same stuff all the time.
For sure. And for me, it's when I was younger, I definitely was. You want to leave your mark as an artist on the world, right? And create stuff that resonates and stands the test of time, and that is appreciated. Know that it was worth it. Like all those floors I slept on, that was worth it. That, like, whether it was a show or an album or a song that really got to somebody that they think is great. Like, that's what you want. That stuff will outlast me. And so, yeah, it's exceptionally flattering, and I love to see it. And it's nice to hear people covering it. It's, but I also, like, I'm just like, oh, too, like, 'cause I don't,
Right.
I just want to appreciate it,
Uh-huh. One more, and I'll send it over to Deaton there. I was gonna ask. Let's see, what the hell was that? What, as far as your recording, especially, what is when you listen back to those, the first couple albums that y'all recorded, or anything you recorded, is there a certain track or something that stands out to you and that you're like, hell yeah, that was pretty good. Something that you're proud of.
I mean,
you've recorded.
I'm proud of all of it. We had some definite, like, time and budget constraints on the earlier records, and we were definitely finding our sound in the early days. You could hear the influences, but blending them all together, I don't think we had quite arrived there. Because that's the thing about American Aquarium. It was guys from, like, all different backgrounds. We all had a lot of different influences, and so blending them together was fun, but took some time too. And the more we played on the road, the more we kind of gelled. I think what I would say is the most proud thing that I think about it is we did a Live in Raleigh record. BJ has such a better memory than me. I think came out in like 2010 or 2011, maybe.
Right.
And then we did Live at Terminal West, and that came out in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And to hear the growth in the band over those years, I think by Live at Terminal West, I think that really captured us at a great time. I think we were playing well together, and we had leaps and bounds as far as, like, dynamics go, and just playing off each other and being present and listening in the moment and understanding where we all were as musicians and playing into and sometimes intentionally against that was the thing I'm most proud of. We grew a lot, and it's helped me in every project since.
I didn't think about that as far as the live situation, because that you're not hiding anything in that situation.
No, that's we didn't go back and overdub stuff. That was what it was. We didn't do 2 or 3 nights and take the best. Like, that was one night. I think there was one song on the maybe it was Good Fight or something on the original Live in Raleigh that we messed up and we had to do again on the encore. We may have actually messed it up twice. We're drinking a lot more in those days, but yeah, for the Live at Terminal West, like that's what we played live, and I think it captured us at a great time. I'm very proud of that.
That's cool. That's cool to
Yeah,
hear.
that's
I actually have. I was playing that on my little
Oh,
vinyl hour the other day.
look at that!
Talbot can attest to that.
That's
So
awesome.
I just been lazy and haven't put it up yet. So
No, that's awesome, man. I think that's cool. I love that album art too. My buddy George did that,
oh really?
and yeah, he drew us all our nudie suits. We were kind of trying to will that into the universe, the fancy, flying
Oh,
gorilla
I
breather
see. I
jackets.
see. Also, man, I wish my camera wasn't like micro size, but
Yeah,
each person has their own nudie suit jacket, and his
yeah,
has a weight on it.
yep, yep.
So
like a plate.
That's pretty on brand.
yeah.
You know, as we do this tonight, you'll find out really quick that uh, Soul is much more the biographical side of the interview
Gotcha.
with people and band history and kind of storied side of things. I'm much more like in music altogether. I feel like I missed my calling doing some kind of tech job. I'm much more on the technical side and the live kind of vibe.
Gotcha.
What you were saying a while ago really hit well because like him talking about the live album, I know that you can probably go back and hear things you're like, probably could have done that a little better, or waiting for this one part because you notice the little things like I never did that same way again. But some of the best albums that were ever recorded in the history of music were live albums. Of course, Allman Brothers and Grateful Dead. Name pick your poison there, plethora
Yeah, yeah,
of bands. The live albums were 10 times more influential than the recording because you could hear those people in the raw. You know what I mean? It's in
yeah.
that moment right now. So, when you were kind of finding that as a group, did you notice that each of you were kind of feeding, as you said earlier? I'm kind of going to dig deeper on that. Not only playing live, but in the studio. How much different was it for you to approach laying tracks down in the studio the first time, or how much of a shell shock was it to hear each other in a very, or under a microscope, I guess what you would say, and how did that develop and kind of feed into the live sound as well, as far as like what parts you would play and what parts played more of a foundation in the overall sound versus just particular songs, if
Sure,
that's not too vague.
sure. No, no. That process progressed and kind of changed. I feel like I was fortunate enough. I had done a lot of kind of session work while I was in college, um, and worked with this one producer who had a home studio for a variety of different acts. And so I was kind of used to hearing bass under a microscope. Um, so it wasn't necessarily jarring for me at least, because you do have to kind of play differently, especially as a bass player in the
Of
studio
course, of course.
than you do live. Um, I mean, you just do. Like
Hmm.
sometimes the ghost notes at live really, you can syncopate some things and make it really feel good.
But you're
But
playing the room live though, as
playing
opposed
the
to having it.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
but sometimes that just doesn't work in the studio. And I think for like Bible in the Bottle uh, was the only one where we tracked bass and drums separately. But all the other ones, we tried to get, at the very least, bass and drums together. And then by the end, like when we did Wolves, like we tracked that, and Wolves and Burn Flicker Die. Um, we tracked that all full band. I believe we did that with Dances for the Lonely as well. Um, that was maybe our first try at that. Small Town Hymns, we were kind of limited. We played full band, but we only got bass and drums for the whole album in like 2 days. So there's some stuff I would go back and maybe change on that, because we didn't have that album really written. There wasn't a lot of pre-production. So there was some stuff that we could have kind of dug into and played off of. Um, but it just
It,
wasn't in the budget and time that we had, and unfortunately those days, like, we were like beyond poor. So like we were always over budget.
And it's, but I
Uh,
mean, at the same time, that does show, in any aspect, I don't care what instrument you play, it does show like the progression over time and kind of like your portfolio as you go to, you realize, okay, well, you take that into perspective of the whole hindsight's 2020. Like, I would probably do this different if you had the chance to do something
right,
similar.
right.
Obviously, you're gonna pull that out of a dusty drawer
Yeah.
for a later date.
Oh, for sure. And like you have to kind of forgive yourself and say that, like, look, hey, like a recording is just a snapshot in time,
Yes.
and like whether you like it or not, time and money is a part of it. And so, if we had the time and the money that we did on, say, Wolves, maybe that album would have sounded better. But I think it's also good as a band and as a business. Sometimes you have to, okay, we're limited. Let's make this work. It's like it was like a lower budget indie film. They can still be amazing and still resonate, but you're not going to have the Michael Bay action sequences.
Oh, you're right.
Right.
But it also makes people that are on the listening end, it makes them appreciate the later albums because they understand where it came from.
Right.
Just to somebody that has an ear enough to be able to listen to that,
Right.
they hear the first thing and then they hear the last rendition of that and they're like, wow, that's come a long way. These guys have really,
Yeah.
really
And
stepped it up.
I mean, to his credit, BJ's a great songwriter. Like, it's the songs were there. Like, the arrangements, yeah, is from a musician side of the thing. Like, would we like to have done some stuff differently? Yes, but like at the end of the day, like the songs are there, right? So everything else, like whether that was acoustic or a fucking 12-piece band or American Aquarium as it was, like those would all be different interpretations of it, but the songs are there, and I think it took us longer as a band to kind of come along and get together to where everybody was firing on all cylinders. And BJ's writing continued to improve and stuff like that. He's always been a great writer, but he continued to improve. The band continued to improve, and like from Burn, Flicker, Die kind of on, I feel like it was great. But like those early days, okay, do we spend our time laboring over bass lines and drum parts? No. It's like BJ's vocals need to be there. The song needs to be there. As long as we have that, it is what it is. We can do it however we want live.
Right.
And that's just how you have to look at it, because you don't have the luxury of being like, yeah, I think I want to go try this on that bass track after you've already done it. Like, well, that's more money. We can't do that.
Absolutely. And I guess the last question I have on that before I give it back to Soul would be like feeding off of that. I find that a lot of bands that do find success are ones that can kind of gel together and find out a common goal, which, okay, well, we're going to focus on BJ's vocals and we're not going to focus so much on immaculate musicianship because, number one, we don't have the time. Number two, budget constraints. And number three, us in general are not 100% there yet, but we have enough, like, we can get this done. Let's just really nail down and kind of cut our teeth on this. Did y'all kind of come together and have that predetermined before you hit the studio, like, hey, this is what we're going to do, guys, and this is it?
We figured that out later. So what we would do is, I feel like some of the issues early on, it was kind of a struggle to make like interesting arrangements for some of the stuff, and we really didn't have much luxury for pre-production because we were always touring. So like to get off the road and work out new material like was very difficult. So we started to get more of that when it came to like Burn, Flicker, Die, right? And so we started to work on songs, and that's why the arrangements definitely changed. Like if you listen to, Small Town Hymns and Dances for the Lonely, it's a little more straight ahead. Like, I mean, there's some cool stuff in there, but like musically. But from Burn, Flicker, Die on, what we would do is, we would had the luxury of time to like get together with BJ, look at the song structure, work on that, and then we would get together, just the musicians, like ahead of time, make changes, right? And it wasn't that BJ wasn't receptive to the changes. It was just it would be hard for anybody like to sit there and would be like, oh no, try to move your finger here. Okay, what if we went to an A minor there? Okay, what if you did that syncopated part? Like the musician aspect of it is very tedious and time consuming to
No,
work out interesting arrangements, or it can be. And we were the band that actually enjoyed doing stuff like that. So we would get together and work on stuff, and then we'd get together again the next day with BJ and be like, check this out. And he was always like, oh yeah, that's great, I love that, that's cool. And so we kind of had free reign on that. So once we were like, okay, well, we just need to be able to do some pre-production and dedicate some time to it. It wasn't that we weren't, you know,
weren't willing, but
yeah, we weren't learning how to play our instruments, but like cool to find our sound. We wanted to find stuff that was cool and different. Like, I mean, even like with Wolves, like every song on that album is in a different key. Like we wanted to make sure that was a thing. We didn't want to do everything in G, like a lot of bands, or A, there's a lot of different keys on that record. And so we're selfishly just trying to make it as interesting as we could for us. And so that's what we found worked for us. And then like when you're playing live, it's just a different setup. Then you get to kind of indulge yourself or indulge different people in the band and kind of play with it a little bit. But it was nice once we. What's that?
The meat and potatoes of everything is already there at that
Yeah,
point.
the meat
So
and potatoes were there.
As you go on, you can kind of put some flourishes here and there how you want to, or
Yeah.
change it up. It's a group,
Yeah, but by that point, like the meat and potatoes were were a lot more interesting for us. You know what I mean? Whereas like if you show up to the recording studio and you haven't done a lot of pre-production, you're kind of coming up with stuff on the fly, and then you have to nail down bass and drum tracks in like 2 or 3 days. Can be done. We certainly did it. If I was the player I am now, going back then, I probably would have done it a little bit differently. But still certainly proud of what we did. Like those songs still stand up, even the musical arrangements. I think it's just a matter of musicians are never going to be happy with them.
Right.
Like you're never going to hear anybody in American Aquarium in any iteration like listen to something. They'll be like, oh yeah, that's cool, but they're going to be like, we fucking nailed it. Couldn't have done that any better.
Right.
Like if we had that attitude, like we wouldn't be good players.
Right.
Well, you stop trying to get to that next milestone, regardless of how short or the law of diminishing returns to that.
Yeah.
You still want to reach that, dude. Like it's
there's an impulse to go dig in and just keep messing with it and messing with it and messing with it.
Yeah, for those of you that aren't musicians, I can tell you now, trying to find anything original or interesting parts in songs nowadays and not automatically refer that in your head to something else that's already been done is so difficult to do. It is for me on my end of even trying to think of something that's not a already been done, been there, done that kind of thing. It's going to come out. I mean,
but like, I don't think it has to be a negative thing. Like I like listening to bands where you can you're like, oh, I can hear they're influenced by this. I can hear they're influenced by that. It doesn't. I don't think it doesn't have to be derivative. You'd be like, oh, okay, I can tell they like this band or they like this band or they were listening a lot to this when they wrote that. And I think that's like a cool kind of peek behind the curtain that sometimes people who are players get a little bit more than other people. Even us, like I can go through and we can listen to songs and be like, oh yeah, we were listening to a lot of this band or this band at the time, and like nobody's ever like trying to do that, but like if you listen to stuff and you like it and you inspire it, like you're gonna gravitate towards some of that stuff.
Yeah, makes sense.
It's no different than the whole you are who you are around for a long period of time.
Yeah.
Like the same thing, like your influences. It's so cool though, like going to a concert and like we'll sit around and like, man, you know who he reminds me of? This one and this one mixed together. Like he plays like this, but his tone sounds like this guy right here. And everyone's like, you know what? You're right. But that's really cool as a musician listening to it, to hear that and go, I'll wonder if that cat has that same mindset that I'm thinking that he has. But you can hear it. You know what I mean? If you pay attention to the little stuff, and even singers and the lyrics, the way that the song's written, and kind of how that they approach that microphone, like you can just tell if you've got something. But anyway. Yeah,
and sometimes it's like snuck in there intentionally, like a little Easter egg, And like BJ would do that. He would like allude to other bands in the lyrics, like as an Easter egg, to be like, oh, okay, like this is an allusion to Bob Dylan or whatever. Uh,
Yeah.
but
Make
yeah,
sure
no,
people are picking up what he's putting down.
yeah, it's like people who are really listening pick up on that stuff, and that's not even just in songwriting. Like I went to go see Childish Gambino like a couple years ago, and like his live show was it was like a modern day Sly and the Family Stone, which is a bass player, like I'm
Yes.
definitely into. But like I couldn't believe that he was doing that, and that there were so many young people like loving what he was doing that probably have never heard of Sly and the Family Stone.
Right.
And like I got tickled by that. I just thought that was great, So and his records don't sound like that, but live he did. And so yeah, I have the same Rolodex of like when I'm listening to stuff, I'm trying to put it through the filter of like, oh, what else does this sound like?
What is right?
And again, it's not in a way to try to make them seem derivative. It's just your frame of reference.
Absolutely.
Well, you were as far as the sound of those early albums with American Aquarium, and then you mentioned Burn, Flicker, and Die several times, and I gather seemed like a turning point album with you guys. And why was that album? How did that come about? Why did that change, and why was that so much different than albums before that? And two, how did the Isbell connection work out? As people don't know, Isbell produced that album. So
Yeah, he produced that album. So it was kind of a turning point because the band was really like, and BJ's talked about this, but I mean, like we were down and out. I mean, we had been grinding for a lot of years and marginal regional success, but like nothing great. I mean, the shows were fun, but like we weren't. We were a 6-piece band too. Like that's it's hard to make any sort of money. So we're all like just got broke all the time and always on the road just to be able to have money to stay on the road. And I ended up I quit briefly because I was getting divorced, and because I was never home, and that's kind of how that works. And our keyboard player left at the same time. The TM was filling in on bass, and I quickly realized that when I quit, I didn't realize I was getting divorced. And then when I did quit, I realized I was getting divorced. And so I was like, hey, y'all need a bass player again? And he was like, yes, absolutely. Come on. And so it was kind of like, collectively like a Hail Mary. We're just like, yeah, let's do one more record. And we had, it was funny. I think I'd asked for Christmas, like when parents asked me what I wanted. I was like, yeah, Jason Isbell's Sirens of the Ditch album would be awesome, right? It had kind of just come out, and I'm a big Truckers fan. We all were, and like Jason's stuff. So they bought me that record. But we ended up getting to play with them right after Christmas that year. It was us, him, and Will Hogue. We just got to meet them.
That would be one of my dream concerts.
It was one of my.
I love Will Hogue too.
Like, I've been a part of some bills that I'm just like, man, that was great. Like,
That's cool.
And that was one of them. Like, I love Will Hogue and I love Isbell, and they were all so nice. And then Isbell, for whatever reason, just kept in touch with us, and we would go through Muscle Shoals and Sheffield, and he'd like cook us breakfast and stuff like that, and have us over. We'd play like a little like pool bar in Sheffield, and he'd come set up his guitar and play with us. And it was just always a very wonderful man, and very nice and encouraging to us, and gave us a lot of great advice. And so like I think BJ just was like, what's it going to take for you to do the next record? And he was just like, yeah, I'll do it. We're like,
well, okay.
Yeah, okay. We all heard that, right? Like, somebody record that. And and so yeah, he agreed, and we did a crowdfunding Kickstarter for that, and having his name attached to it, you know, but back then he was just a very
Right.
big deal, not the same way he is now,
Right.
but like a huge deal, like in that alt country Americana
Hmm.
scene, and so we started to get like a lot more attention, and we agreed like, all right, we're going to do one more. We get to work with Isabel. Like obviously, at the time we were like, oh, we peaked. This is it. Like it doesn't get any better than this. We get to go to the
Right.
recording studio with Jason Isbell, and people actually gave us money to do it. It was fantastic, and it was fantastic. It was great. We recorded down the Nut House in Muscle Shoals, and once we announced that Kickstarter, there was a definitive shift in energy of people coming to the shows and with engagement on social media, and it was palpable. And from pretty much that moment on, it was kind of like a little bit of a ride. Just because people started talking about us more, people started coming to shows started selling out, and we were like, oh, this is way better than
Right.
how it has been, and it allowed us the luxury of a little more time off, and not that we had much, but we could then do a little bit more pre-production on stuff, and just play some better shows, higher profile shows,
Right.
definitely more lucrative, and yeah, it was all kind of uphill from there.
Well, I guess one more question on the American Aquarium stuff before
Sure.
move on to the other. One of the local bands that I'm a huge fan of, I've seen. I'm pretty sure at every American Aquarium show that's been in Memphis, there's been a member of Lucero
Yeah,
hanging out at your. And you were talking about the albums as far as the grittiness at the earlier albums compared to the later albums.
yeah,
That's immediately who came to mind when you were talking about that, because those early Lucero albums compared to now, it's a different sound, different style of writing, the whole thing.
for sure.
But have you had any dealings with those guys? I'm
Oh
sure you've
yeah,
done
no,
shows before.
yeah. I think like our first time in Memphis, we played the Buccaneer, if that's even still a thing.
I think it burned.
It did it really.
I don't think it's there anymore.
I hate to hear that. Also, not surprising.
Understood. Understood completely.
But yeah, we played there, and John came out. John and Roy and
Yeah,
Ben.
John C was always he's the one that I see around more than any
Sounds great.
whether it's John Moreland or different people that roll through town. He's
Yeah.
always there and always had a good time. John's always had a
He
good time every
does.
time I see him.
I've never seen that man in a bad mood, and I hope I never do. It's they were all so nice, like from the get go. In fact, I think it may have been that first time we played the Buccaneer, and a couple of them showed up, and like that was when they were staying at the Elvis Loft, the dojo. Are you familiar with this?
No, I'm not familiar with it, but
So they had like a band house that was Elvis's old dojo in Memphis,
I got you.
and
That might be the album name. They have one called Overton Avenue.
yeah,
That
yeah,
may
yeah.
be.
In fact, I was playing the Whitewater Tavern in Little Rock, and Ben took me and BJ and I think Kevin, our drummer, into his van, and we listened to the masters for that like a couple months before it was released. It was the first time we heard Lucero with horns, and we're like, "This is awesome." So no, I love
And they were
Lucero.
all regional people too, which is
Yeah. Oh
another
yeah.
thing that's real cool. He uses a lot of Memphis musicians in their
It's,
band in general. I
that
mean, I
is
know he's an Arkansas guy too, but
yeah, but I mean he does love Arkansas, but that whole band loves Memphis in the same way like we love Raleigh. Like
yeah,
American Aquarium isn't the same without Raleigh. It's
understood.
just like there's an association there and a pride. Like I love that town. I
That's
don't live there
home.
now, but that's home for me. And you know, and so I like that they're proud of that and didn't And there's so many talented musicians. Why wouldn't you use horns from Memphis? Like,
Right.
that would be ridiculous. But yeah, no, I love Lucerne. I love that rawness. Their records are just fantastic. I'm still a fan of them. I'm trying to catch them whenever they come through town here in the DFW area.
Okay, so I was thinking about this. So speaking of coming through town, they're another band like American Aquarium that got adopted into the Texas music scene somehow. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Of course, they have no steel guitar or anything like that in their band, but they're still not likely suspects to be adopted into that scene. So how did that happen as far as with American Aquarium? I mean, I know you're in Fort Worth now, but
Right.
you had connections in Texas before that. How did American Aquarium get in that scene like that?
Okay, so we
Or
struggled.
when did it start happening?
Yeah, yeah. So we started to have some success in like the southeast, right? But we'd get to Texas and Oklahoma and just like fall flat on our face. We just weren't really selling a lot of tickets, which makes it very, very hard to go out to the West Coast. And we were determined to go out to the West Coast, and we did it every year, but it was always like a big financial loss, really. And we were playing a place in Fort Worth, actually. I can't remember what the name of it was, but I know where it's at in Fort Worth. Um, and it was just a lot of tables. They had the biggest. I still remember this was a ridiculously something you only find in Texas, like the longest shuffleboard thing that I've ever seen. It was like a fucking quarter mile long. It seemed like, and we were playing there, and I want to say it was like a terrible night for live music, like Monday night or Tuesday night or something like that.
Right.
And there was one table of dudes there that were not there to see us at all, but like we're
Right.
there, they're there. We played, and they started sending up rounds of shots, like 6 at a time, like after every song. And so the time we got off stage, we were loaded, and we were like, well, we gotta go hang out with these guys. Otherwise, it'd be real awkward not to. And it was a guy named Brian Beckman, uh, Roger Ray, and I believe it was like Hey. I think he played drums for Ryan Bingham. But Roger Ray was the pedal steel player, and Jason Boland and the Stragglers. And Brian Beckman was he booked for Magnolia Motor Lounge in Fort Worth, and we ended up kind of just all hitting it off. And I remember Roger Ray being like, "You guys should tour with my band," and we were like, "Cool, who's your band?" And he was like, "Jason Boland and the Stragglers," and we were like, "Cool, never heard of them." We had never heard of them,
Right.
and he was like, "Don't worry, I'll set it up." And we've heard that before. Sure you will.
Right.
Well, sure as shit, his booking agent reached out to us a couple months later, and it was maybe like 6-8 months later. We had like a month-long tour with Jason Boland and the Stragglers, and we started doing that, and people hated us because they were doing a lot of Texas dance halls, like Denim and Diamonds and Rock and Rodeo. We're
I
like,
got you.
they wanted to hear, some
Right.
Texas music, some swing. Like they wanted to two-step. They wanted to wear their best belt buckle and take a girl dancing. And they looked at us like we were playing on stage with our dicks out. Like they did not know what to make of us. They were like, "Y'all ain't from Texas." And like we weren't getting, opener does not get paid a lot at all.
Right.
Like barely covers gas, let alone hotels. And so you're kind of reliant on merch sales. And because they hated us, we weren't selling anything of merch. And so we talked to the booking agent, and it was we were like, "Hey man, like we love these guys. Like I'm a fan of Jason Boland and the Stragglers. Like I love them to death. They're all fantastic people and the band, and I enjoyed watching the show." But we were like, "Man, I don't think there's a lot of carryover here. Like I don't think
Right.
their fan base is digging us." And he was like, "Cool." He was like, "I have another band that's kind of up and coming. I think you'd fit well with the bill on them. So as soon as we wrap this up, with them, and it was the Turnpike Troubadours. So John Folk, Boland's booking agent, was also Turnpike's booking agent, and ended up picking us up, and is still to this day the booking agent for both American Aquarium and Kyle Nixon, the 38's. And so he's actually the only booking agent I've ever worked with, like, 10, 12 years later or something like that. But then we started to get a much better response when we were on that bill.
Right.
And then it was funny, like after a year or two of kind of breaking into that, really helped us with the Texas and Oklahoma circuit a ton. Like it was invaluable, really. Then we could go back and play with Jason Boland, and the crowd liked us. but upon initial, those first couple of string of shows, like we had a blast. It was some of the most fun times I've ever had on tour was with the Stragglers, but their crowd wasn't.
Well, Turnpike's got a little more of the edge too, so they're not necessarily a dance hall kind of band either.
Like,
so
you weren't going there to two-step with your girl. So nothing wrong with that. Like I love that stuff. Like, but American Aquarium was not that band at the time. And we also we definitely played for us, never the crowd. And a band like that, that crowd at that time would be like, "Oh, play something we know." And we were like, no, unless you know one of our songs, we're not gonna. That's not what you're gonna hear. Like we were there to make ourselves happy, not necessarily to make them happy.
But then you had the guy yelling, "I hope he breaks your heart" for the from the first song, right?
We've had plenty of that, which that never bothered me. I mean, like honestly, like to be that far from home and have anybody yell anything.
I could imagine.
Yeah, like that's fantastic. Like
especially when you're sleeping on floors and everything, just to have somebody know your songs.
That's the crap that we went through just to hear a little bit of this,
Right.
So that's that never bothered me. Some people would pregame a little bit hard. And some of the guys in the band would get really irked at it, and it's easy to get annoyed with it. But at the same time, like we're out here playing music and getting to do that, and we are getting paid to do it, and it's what we've always wanted, right? And you don't know their story. They might be in a relationship that they hate. They might hate their job, in a bad family situation. They bought tickets the first day they went on sale 3 months ago, and they've just been looking forward to this, and they just pre-gamed a little too hard, and now they're a little too drunk and mildly obnoxious. It sucks for the other people that if they're disturbing the show,
right?
But I don't know. I always try to
I get what you mean.
I want to always give them the benefit of the doubt.
That their intentions are good.
Yeah.
Didn't you got one?
Yeah, I mean that just kind of ties in with talking about how difficult it is on the road, talking about not getting paid and not making money, as opposed to what people, contrary to popular belief, the vast majority of working musicians do not make the money that people would otherwise say that they do. Tell me, if you don't mind sharing, tell me some of the hardest times you saw on the road as far as what y'all did financially and how y'all got through that, if you don't mind, and then some kind of name one of the better times you've had, and it could be with any of the acts that you've been with, not just with the aquarium or anything.
Sure. No, my experience with that would mostly be with the aquarium, and I mean in the early days, we were broke. So we would all the money that we made on tour, like at the end of a particular run, let's say we were out for 6 weeks. You would split it. That's just what we did. And it was never a ton of money, but there was one where I think we had a transmission go out or something like that. And I want to say I maybe had just gotten married or was, engaged or something like that. We'd been gone for I don't know, 5 weeks, and I came back. And we would pay ourselves $5 a day per diem, which is comical. You can't, that's not even 2 sodas, right?
Right.
Ramen noodles in a water.
Dude, I straight up used to shoplift protein bars. Like, like I would steal shit off any hotel buffet if we did have a hotel room and they had a breakfast buffet. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
I would come out of there like a pack mule, just with
literally starving to death.
anything that wasn't nailed down. Uh, and you're kind of like reliant on like, I hope tonight's venue feeds us. Um, but yeah, we had like $5 a day. So like, yeah, I would like buy a protein bar and pocket another one. Not proud of it, but it's what we had to do at the time. And I remember getting home, and I think after after we split everything, it was like I think I made like $50, something like that, and
Yeah, free and clear.
free and clear. And I think I ended up borrowing like another $50 from a buddy, so I could like just be like, yeah, here's $100, like to put towards bills. Like that's any better because I just didn't want to go home and be like, yeah, gone for 6 weeks, only made $50. Uh, it was just, but like we wouldn't have had it any other way. We were all too stubborn to quit. I mean, it was just what we wanted to do. And
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough to do it at a time when I could get away with that. It's not like I had a kid or anybody like that that was dependent on me. And
Yeah, so
so,
definitely not about the money at that point, obviously.
for sure,
Yeah,
no,
it's like got a common goal between everybody that's crammed into the van at that point.
yeah, yeah. I mean, we all were bought in at that point, and believed in what we were doing, and I think that was part of the success. Like, it wasn't, you know, it was not like a hired gun scenario. Like American Aquarium, was the members of the band, and so we all took pride in it and were willing to kind of eat it. But fast forward to the later years, and like we all were making really great money, and because we were all invested in it, we could make the choice like let's not go to a bus because we'd rather make more money. Like like we could have gone to a bus years earlier, but we opted not to because just
One of
wanted
the
to,
Check
wanted to kind
check
of
your
make up for
ego and
the
cash
real
your
lean
check.
years. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a kind of a good segue into this. So with that being said, with putting in the time, and obviously you brought up the term hired gun. For those of you that don't know, um, you see acts out on the road that don't necessarily have the same musicians and or backing band that they would use in the studio, and they are literally contracted players to some extent. Some of them are multi, I guess you would say, frequently with the same acts, but not necessarily tied to them all the time. With that being said, since you've kind of branched out and done other things, not necessarily as what you would quote hired gun, but to do other fill-in spots, and then with your other acts and like with the 38 and such, how do you keep yourself valid and kind of moving forward, not only for the sake of getting the opportunity to play with other people, but for yourself to kind of keep it interesting for yourself on stage, and how do you go about without making this too complicated? How do you go about keeping it fresh enough to keep yourself on your toes, to keep enjoying going up there and like, oh, this still hits home hard.
You've got a different mission now.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a different mission. I mean, as a bass player, I feel like my mission's always been like I want to serve the song. Like for a bass player, I'm not there to entertain the crowd, right? And some people may disagree with this, but like the singer, the songwriter, and the lead instrumentation, I feel like my job is to make them as comfortable as possible so that they can do what they need to do to shine. Like if the audience is bobbing their head, tapping their foot, dancing, then I'm doing my job, right? So you're always paying attention for that. Like I want it to feel good. I don't necessarily need anybody to be like, oh, you sounded good. No, I want it to feel good.
Yes.
And that's another reason why I only play with people that I like and respect, because when you do that, the last thing I want to do is do the song or the artists on stage a disservice.
Absolutely.
And
Gotcha.
And
It's
like,
built-in motivation, considering the respect you have for the other.
yeah, yeah. Like I don't have to be there, but I want to be there. So like I want them to be able to do. Yeah, the downside of playing bass is that like you always have to have somebody else, right? Like I
Right.
like just a one man bass solo record or concert, not that great. For most of us, for most bass players, but but also the beautiful thing about playing bass is that I get to play with other people all the time, and I want to make sure they're comfortable, and I try not to have any sort of ego with playing. If I got to play, you know, whole notes on the one,
Yeah.
and that's what fits the song, then like I'll happily do it. I don't care because like if it feels good, then I'm in it. It doesn't
Well,
matter.
and that allows you to be more present and not just having to be focused, kind of what you were talking about earlier about, well, I could play this gig and read charts, which is, I'm sure, at your experience level, is not difficult and you can still be present. But I can either go play a gig that I know the stuff, for the most part, by heart, and I can be, you know, mentally present on stage and kind of vibe with everybody, or
Yeah.
I can play a gig where, well, I can cover the material, but it just doesn't. I don't get locked in with everyone else around me near as well.
Right.
So like you said, you could play whole notes and just hit it, and you can look at it like, well, this is my break. I'm getting a good break, and I can kind of chill and sit back and just play my part. But I guess what I would go with that is, what do you are there like things that you do to keep the bass interesting for you, like as far as a musician, like just to kind of go in that route.
Well, I mean, I gotta say, like, if I wasn't interested, I probably would pass the gig off to somebody else. Honestly. Um, but like, uh, well, to your point about like, really being present, and everything. Like, you always strive for that. What I get called for a lot recently is like emergency fill-in gigs. I can read charts. I can make charts fairly quickly, and I also am very fortunate enough to, with my day job, that I have a great staff and they can cover for me, so I can kind of come and go on sometimes very short notice. And so, I've filled in with a number of acts to where somebody's sick, injured, literally like find out the day before and they book you a flight the next morning. And so you got to pull an all-nighter trying to, chart out the songs. And at that point, being present changes. Like you have to rely on muscle memory of locking in with the groove and just dialing in with the drummer and be like, okay, I quickly understand how this drummer plays and how this band plays. Like when I did this for Shane Smith and the Saints, Chase, their bass player, got sick. I love those guys. I'm, was thrilled that they asked me to sit in and fill in. Like that band, like they don't play with a click. So there's a lot of push and pull time wise as well as dynamically. And American Aquarium did a ton of that. So I was like, immediately, I get it. Like, and I'm a fan of the band, so I've seen them play a million times. So like I got that, and that was easy to pick up on. Other bands are a lot more, rigid, play to a click. And as a bass player, I need to make sure that everybody, like the structure, that I don't have the luxury of a guitar player or a pedal steel player where I can kind of back out of a solo or like, oh, the wrong part. Like I got to kind of commit. And if I jump to the chorus, halfway through the verse, I have to very quickly recover or just double down. Like, you're really on your toes with that sort of thing.
That's what I was gonna say. Do you like that challenge like that when you get that call and you're like, okay, I'm gonna like, is that challenge just another thrill or just a little added bonus? Like hell yeah,
It's exciting. It's exciting. That's not what I love. Because like I want to, and that's why I take those gigs. Because if it's somebody that I love and respect, like
how many chances
I want
are
them
you
to
gonna
have
get?
somebody that cares about it doing it.
Gotcha.
Because it's very easy to go really, really, really south with that.
Right.
When the bass hits the wrong note or like goes to the wrong section of the song, like it makes nobody's like, ew, that bass player hit a wrong note. Like
But the
everybody just
band,
immediately, it's just like cringe across the audience. They're just like, that didn't sound good, but they don't know what it
No
is.
doubt, no
You know?
doubt. Like you can even have in ears on, and the other guitar player hit something wrong, or like the drummer hit like something that he doesn't normally do, just anything like that. But the like your bassist just one fret off, or just like
Oh,
a quarter note too early, or something like just something's off, and
oh,
it's just like you got slapped in the face out of nowhere, just like oh.
it's the
It's
worst.
very 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 obvious,
Yeah,
which sucks for y'all.
it's a glaring mistake. But because I feel like I'm going to give it the love and attention and passion it deserves to try to get through it. So like if you see me at one of those shows like where I'm like, God, I'm this is last minute, like I'm stressed. Like I'm not super happy.
right?
Like I'm happy that I'm flattered that they called, and I'm going to do the best I can do.
Yeah.
I bet
Sometimes
that
like there's only so much you can do.
I bet that is flattering, though. With like you said, with different. I mean, as of Shane Smith and the Saints, I mean, they're in that world, they're a pretty big band. So for
Oh no,
them
they're
to
huge.
trust you with their songs,
Yeah.
I imagine that is flattering. So when you said you stopped playing music for 7 years or something like that, and you
4 years.
moved to
4 years.
4 years,
I've lived
and
in Fort Worth for 7 years,
7 years.
but
So
for the first 4 years, I didn't play, and I did get some calls for gigs and stuff like that. But I was very much trying to turn this gym around and stuff like that, and trying to. I'm like a real go big or go home kind of guy. Like I'm all in or not, and and I really wanted to kind of find my footing, and I was very busy with I coached in strength sports and running a gym and personal training and total career shift. So I really didn't have the time or energy to do that. And I'm glad I took that time off because when Kyle called and asked if I wanted to play with him, I
that's
mean, Kyle's one of my best friends. Like I love that guy. I've known him for years. And, you know, uh, I was super excited to do it. And so that's how I knew that it was like, okay, now's the time. Let me, maybe I should buy a
okay.
bass amp.
Yeah, that's what I was. That's what I was gonna ask. What made you get the guitar off the wall? Like, what was the moment? So Kyle calling, and
Yeah.
was
I was at
did he
work.
already have a band going at that time, or how did
He,
that?
he recorded his first record with the guys from Turnpike.
Okay,
So I think RC played bass on most of it. Like Engelman played guitar. A couple other people from Oklahoma City played. Like Ken Pomeroy sang on it. Isaac played guitar. So there, it was all recorded, not like together as a band, but
right.
done to his songs. And so he had put that out, and then messaged me, sent me a text one day. I was at work. He was like, "Hey man, like, are you still living in Fort Worth?" And I was like, "Yeah, man. What's up?" And he was like, "Well, I'm putting a band together, and like, I know you're a little far from me, but like, I'd love it if you played bass." And I was like, "Absolutely." So at first, I thought it was going to be more of a bluegrass band, so I went and bought an upright bass. Um, and I had one years ago, but sold it when
Right.
at some point pre Burn Flicker Die when it was very tight. I sold it, and so I bought another one, and then kind of COVID happened, and so that stuff got shelved, and then we started playing again. I think my first show back was like 2001, I believe, um, with Kyle, and but it was just great. I mean, he's the best fiddle player. I mean, he's just amazing and an amazing person.
Right.
And I love that he was writing songs now, and actively recording them, and it seemed like a great fit. And so we ended up doing like a bluegrass section and an electric section, and it was fun. And then once I started playing and getting out more, then it was I think I guess word got out that like maybe I was playing again, and so then I started to get a little bit more like fill in and like, hey, are you available on these dates? And started taking the ones that I was excited about. So
I got you. I was going to ask how that door kind of opened to the other to other people to so it was just word of mouth and
Yeah.
because of Kyle and that respect.
Yeah, pretty much. I kept in touch with a lot of people, like, I mean, the Shane Smith and
Yeah,
Saints guys, like,
I
they,
got you.
it was funny, like, when I stopped playing, you know, the musician world can be kind of insular, and, um, I thought because, like, I wasn't in a band anymore, like, maybe, like, a lot of, you know,
Right.
people would, like, maybe not return my phone calls or something like that, but that certainly wasn't the case, and definitely not with Shane Smith and the Saints. Like, um, you know, Chase is such a sweetheart. He would message me, be like, "Hey, we're coming through Friday. Are you available? I'll put you on the guest list." Like, so, like, it was nice. I continued those relationships, and so they kind of saw, um, like, oh, I'm thinking about playing again with Kyle. We got some shows coming up in a couple months, and to them, I was actively playing again, and, like, Jamie Lynn Wilson, I had played with her one time at Medicine Stone years ago. It was a pickup band, like, no rehearsal. It was like me, the pedal steel player from American Aquarium, the drummer, Dustin Schaefer from, now he's with Shane Smith and Saints, but, at the time he was with Mickey and the Motor Cars. And, so we had played together. So then she hit me up. She was doing some shows and needed a bass player. And it just kind of, spiraled from there. So.
She's she seems like a extremely cool person
Oh,
to be around. Jamie Lynn does. I saw her and Jason Eady here in town together, which was
oh,
a
awesome.
trip with those two together. They were bullshitting back and forth and making fun of each other. And but she's like Emmylou Harris, like reincarnated to me anyway. She's got that thing.
Yeah, she is so talented and so sweet, but, like, funny too. Like, I mean, she's just such a good
Mhm.
hang. Like, literally, if she calls and says, "Hey, are you available?" Like, I will do almost anything to shuffle stuff around to make sure that I can play with her, because she's just fantastic to be
Also,
around and to play with, and it's like it's never not a great time.
she seems like she's one of the most called on harmony singers in the business in that area too. She seems
Oh
to. I
yeah,
mean, she was nailing it with as far as at that show with Edie too. So yeah,
she
she's
nails everything. Like, I mean, she really, like, she's spot on. She doesn't mess around. She's great.
so. What's coming up for you guys? What do you have going on as far as you're playing right now, or with Kyle Nix? Talbot puts the band leader things. As how does I guess we'll go back to that first. How does what's the band leader of Kyle
I,
Nix and the 38's?
I don't
What
think
is
I'm
that?
the band. I don't think I'm the band leader. It all, like, yeah, it all. It's a pretty collaborative process. I do a lot of, more, like, managerial stuff, just because, like, so, because I like to bite off more than I can chew.
I got you.
No, when I say managerial stuff, I mean more like red tape. Like, so, I have a wonderful fiance named Lily, and she helps it. Like, she basically runs, like, the online store. So, like, we'll do fulfillment for merchandise if you order for Kyle Nix and the 38's, because Kyle's so
Got you.
busy. Like,
He's
he
busy.
doesn't have time, and also,
Understand.
like, why pay a third party to do it, right? Like, um, we have,
Understand.
a much more laid back routine and lifestyle here, uh, to where, like, Lily will do, the fulfillment, and then, like she'll package everything up and weigh it. She works from home, and then I'll run it over to the post office and stuff like that. Lily sells merch when we're on the road. Um, I think, I like hosting the band, so, like, I'll try to get everybody to come here, and then we'll go. Like, I'll try to do as much of the driving as possible, because none of it's work for me. Like, I feel very guilty that I feel like I've never worked a day in my life. I love every job that I have, whether it be music or the gym, and so, it's like the stuff that, like, if you go to a show and you got to drive for 5 hours and you hit some traffic, like, that's stressful. I don't want to put the other musicians through that, because it takes energy away from being creative on stage. And
Right.
bass players just tend to be a little bit more,
in the pocket.
in the pocket, but like, yeah, like, I mean, it's, bass players all have a slightly different temperament, and like I'm good for
I,
that.
I was gonna say low key as like a
Yes.
base dad joke there.
Dude,
You're
it
low
is.
key.
Yeah, and yeah, I think I may be the oldest member in the 38's, so I am kind of like the bass dad. I have a very narc dad look. It's like nobody's selling me drugs at a music festival for sure. But
Gotcha.
but yeah, I try to take care of everybody and facilitate stuff as best as I can, um, because everybody in that band's so busy, and I love that band.
I got you.
They're all amazing. But because Turnpike is so busy, we are not very busy. So we have a couple shows coming up this month, a couple next month, but other than that, the schedule's kind of free. I've been playing with a band for maybe about 7 or 8 months now, called the Teague Brothers. And the singer John was originally from Winnie, Texas, but he moved recently to Fort Worth. He and I live here. A couple of the guys live in College Station, and fantastic songwriter, wonderful human, great players. All the guys in the band are fantastic, and they have a new record that's coming out. They had already recorded it. They were a band that called me for an emergency gig. They had opened for Kyle, a couple run of shows, and
Right.
I actually just enjoyed really like hanging out with them at the shows, and we all got along. And it was right when the day I finished my bass parts for the After the Flood record, for the Kyle Nix record. They messaged me. It was January of last year, and they were like, "Hey, are you gonna be in Steamboat this year for Music Fest?" And I was like, "No, not this year, man." And they were like, "Do you want to be?" And I was like, "What happened?" And Jason, their bass player, had like fallen off the stage and like shattered his knee and like messed everything up. Like he had to go to the emergency room, and that was like the day before. Like they were on their way out to Steamboat. And so I drove from Oklahoma back to Fort Worth, stayed up all night, worked on charts, flew out the next morning to Denver. They picked me up, and we went straight to Steamboat and played a show. And so I filled in for that music festival for them. And so they called me last fall, and their bass player had to leave just because I think they were being a little bit busier than what worked well for him and his family.
Right.
And I was like, "Yeah, man." And so they had already recorded the record, but they let me retrack bass on one of the songs. And the album's fantastic. So I'm really excited for them. So I have that. I have the Vince Gill cover band, 38's.
Minced deal, everybody.
Vince Gill. Sure to be a household name any day now. And then like recently, as of the past 3 weeks, been playing bass for Mickey and the Motor Cars. Their bass player Andy is a very sweet guy, but unfortunately has some health issues that are going to keep him off the road for quite a while. And so they were ones that texted me at 1:30 in the afternoon on a Thursday. Here in Fort Worth, they have the Ranch 95.9, and they haven't done it in years, but they were going to do like a weekly concert series. It's a free concert every Thursday night. And it was a Thursday, and I get a message from Bobby, their drummer, at 1:30 in the afternoon. He's like, "Hey, man, what are you doing the next 2 days?" I was like, "I have tickets to the Fort Worth Food and Wine Festival, and then Lily and I are coming to see you play tonight." And he was like, "Cool, cancel your wine date. You're hired." And I was like, "Oh no, what happened?" And so their bass player had gotten really sick and had to go to the emergency room. And so I met them at 4 for sound check. At 5 o'clock we were done, and I had from 5 to 8. We went on to 8:30. I had to listen to the songs and try to figure out a 90-minute set. And so I've been
No pressure.
no pressure. And so that was a real Hail Mary. But we went as best as one could hope for. Was it perfect? Absolutely not. But we got through it, and and I've been playing with them since we actually just got back from the Texas Country Music Cruise. Um, so that was a lot of fun, but it's fun playing with those guys, and they got some great shows coming up this summer, and I think they have a new album that they finished recording as well. So there will be some touring on that. So my schedule's full.
Well, when your schedule is not full, and you actually have time to slow down and just sit and chill for however long that might be, what are you listening to?
Oh, honestly, I kind of listen to a little everything. I mean, I was going to go to school for jazz performance. So I mean, wow. I'm trying to think. I I mean, I love music in this scene. Like I love Turnpike. Um, I love Shane Smith and the Saints. I love Jamie Lynn, making the motor cars. I still like from coming up on the East Coast. I love alt country, like Sun Volt, Drive By Truckers, Lucero. Uh, I kind of like that brand of stuff. I'm a big Ryan Adams fan. I know like not a lot of people say that nowadays, but I like Ryan Adams, his music. Uh,
Mhm.
so that's kind of what I gravitate a little bit more towards. And I'm trying to think what recently I've discovered that's been fantastic. Oh, I really like the Wilder Blue. Um, that band is disgustingly good, and live are even like I saw them on the cruise, and I didn't want to go on 5 hours later. Like I was like, they're so
Makes you want
good.
to quit?
Yeah, I was just like, man, it was. They're all super sweet people and fantastic musicians. Like each one of them could just like front their own band. It's gross the amount of talent that band has. It's offensive, really.
Yeah, I would say that was probably like it, we don't really play anything like that, but like I would say like R&B, like the old Motown stuff. That stuff is like I could just drop it and just listen to it and not be like, man, how did he do that?
Oh yeah,
Not trying to mentally break it down musically. Like I could just chill and
yeah.
listen to
No,
it. You know?
that old stuff, like any old like Motown and R&B stuff. I even like the late '90s and early 2000s like neo soul stuff. Like D'Angelo's Voodoo album is one of my favorite of all time. But yeah, anything of um, Motown, even like the '70s funk. Like I mean, as a bass player,
Yeah.
like put on Sly and the Family Stone, and like I'm good. I'm good.
That like I came up on that like Chicago and
Oh yeah,
kind not really in the same area, but Atlanta rhythm section, like that kind of
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah,
That's what my dad was playing, and like that's what I still like to like just chill and listen to if I'm not trying to learn something. A little bit of
yeah.
everything, like you said, but that's
Yeah.
kind of the chill
And
zone.
honestly, like I think my the me and Gabe, the drummer for Turnpike, definitely like bonded over this. Like I love '80s like new wave. Like I love Tears for Fears. Like I'm a product of the '80s, and so like it is. I have a whole '80s playlist that I listen to when I work out in the garage all the time. But yeah, like Hall and Oates, Huey Lewis. Like that's my guilty pleasure when I want to just enjoy listening to music. I kind of love like '80s pop.
Well, two quick questions. We'll let you get out of here. One, just who was your first concert that you went to go see?
It was Ozfest '98. Tool was the co-headliner with Ozzy. The first band on the main stage I saw was Motorhead.
And then you're like, well, we'll start American Aquarium right here.
Yeah, right. I was just like, yeah. I took a hard left after that. But yeah, that was my first concert. Was Ozfest '98. I got to see like Megadeth. Um, yeah, Tool was like mind blowing. Like, yeah, that
Yeah.
one got me. Yeah, Ozzy, Tool, uh, Limp Bizkit. It was before Limp Bizkit was like really
Right.
big. They were on. The sun was still up. They were on like 3 in the afternoon. Uh,
Pantera wasn't on that tour, was it? At Ozfest?
Pantera wasn't. No, I wish I never saw Pantera, but man, I would have loved to see that.
Especially now you're in Texas. That's their
Oh,
territory.
yeah, and like I work out like at Metroflex or like one of the powerlifting gyms where there's no heating AC, like everything's covered in rust, and it's just like always Pantera on, and it's like that's how it should be. But if you have a
Fitness
gym
and
in
gains
Texas,
right now.
right? Yeah, if you have a gym in Texas and you don't have air conditioning, you better be playing Pantera. That's all I'm saying.
All right, so the last question, and this is we've asked this on every episode so far. What's your, and especially this is kind of comical considering your career here, but what's your favorite Little Debbie cake?
Oh fuck yeah! No, I trust me. I'll know like what gas stations have what, you know.
Okay.
But my favorite Little Debbie is clearly the double decker fudge round, hands down, hands down.
Okay. All right. So.
And because you can't even buy it in the grocery store, it's just a regular fudge round. And who's got time for that? The filling to cookie ratio is way better.
Way off. Yeah. It's too dark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
See, we're on the same page here.
See.
Okay,
All right.
then.
Good. What's
right.
y'all's?
Mine's the fudge round too, and when they accused me, they accused me of that being my favorite because of Oliver Anthony. I'm like, no. This was long before. This is a long-term relationship right here.
Yeah, and no, I'm being very specific. I like the double decker fudge rounds, and if they fucking sold them in bags, I would be the first in line. Sign me up. Like I'll put that on subscription on Amazon. Send it to my house every month. Please.
Every month, I got you.
I've got to be the one that says the Christmas tree cake.
Christmas tree cake's good. But I like it's just too festive. It's weird for me to eat that in June, you know. And
it's not for me. I smash a Christmas tree cake at 2:00 in the morning in July.
Oh god, it's the most wonderful time of the year all year.
yeah, exactly.
All right, man. I really appreciate you hopping on. Thanks to Talbot for setting all this up and everything. He seems like a halfway decent dude, so that's real cool of him to do. Definitely. So what we have the Mickey and the Motor Cars coming up, and the Teague Brothers.
Teague Brothers
They're on that album as you said on. So
yeah, their first single is the track I played on, and I think it comes out on the 10th. So a week and a half till that comes out.
Very cool. All right, man. I appreciate it. Everybody go check out everything that he does. All the guys that he mentioned, the Teague Brothers, Mickey and the Motor Cars, Cal Nix, and the 38's. And, man, we appreciate it.
No,
Stay
thank you for
safe
having me.
on the road, and we hope to see you through this area sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. I will definitely hit you up anytime I come through Memphis, man. Let me know whatever you need tickets to, buddy. But thank you all very much for having me.
No problem. We'll see you.
Thank you, sir.
Take care.